Hello and welcome back to Broken Scripts, the podcast show where I dissect the magic behind the screen. And today I'm tell you about how the screenplay has ways to work its way through your characters and within your screenplay. And today we'll talk about the exploration within characters and their worlds. And let's dive into the script time. It's very important to understand that when it comes to character roles, it's very important to understand that which characters are necessary for your story. Some characters are working within your story because you have a small amount of them, so you can go deep and connect really well with your audience. And there's a lot of scriptwriters who actually do the same thing with so many characters within the story. It's all about the theme of how you have your script and how you want to incorporate those characters within your storytelling, because it's very important to understand that when you have the understanding and knowledge of which characters belong in your story, you have to go forward with that. It's very important to understand that there may be a point where you may want to change so many things about your characters, or do so to a point where you may feel like it's unnecessary, so you may want to cut them out of the story completely, which is normal to do. There's a lot of screenwriters who prefer to cut characters out of their story completely, and it will function better because they're not going to perhaps the character has so much depth within them, however it didn't really work for the story. So you could have the ideal character for your story, however it won't be necessary for the script itself because not a necessary role within the story. In other words, every single character has a role or purpose or reason for being in your story, and you want to express your words with those characters to bring them to life. And it's very important to understand that everything goes planned. However, when you think about the reason why that is because you all probably would see that characters the same way. It's very important to think about each of your characters as if they're actual people rather than as a collective of it, or there are characters that stand out, and the reason why they do is because the scriptwriter finds ways to put their emotions aside and think about what's necessary and needed for the story. It's very important to do so because it's something that they are passionate for. They want to put in the actual effort and do something that will stand out for themselves and have your characters be talked about in so many brilliant ways. It's very important to also have fun doing so because you can be talented, yes, but if you're not passionate, then have something to really think about how you express yourself as a screenwriter. Send me post a question: what makes a great character in a movie or TV show? Think about your favorites, what draws you towards them, when unravel the mystery about that together here today. The characters you see and grew up with, where you just love them, or you may actually find that there are people in your lives that have brilliant characteristics or personalities to draw inspiration from or copy them. It's very important to understand that when it comes to creating your characters, if you have someone who in your life in the real world, it's very important to have your own creativity and imagination within that, because it's somehow that character being your world, So for the protagonist, for example, which I know that's hero of the story. You saw my community post on YouTube. I know which one's first now. Anyways, let's get things over to high gear. Every great story has a central character we call Ruth. You notice how many epic tales follow a similar pattern known as the hero's journey. The protagonist embarks a quest, faces challenges, undergoes transformation, etc. Recipe of storytelling success. But what makes a good protagonist support its real ability. It's always been realistic characters. You see that connect with the characters who mirror our strengths, dreams, and flaws. We could resist them descend into darkness, and it's both intriguing and horrifying and fascinating. Now, that's a protagonist that leaves an impact, and impact is key because when you bring a character to life, we go in the role as someone who's in the audience that are able to learn from, no matter if they agree with their actions, mindsets of the character. It's about how you make them stand out, it's the way they set themselves towards the story, and the antagonist and supporting characters. Moving on from the yin to the protagonist's yang, the antagonist within the story without conflict is the day without sunshine. Antagonists bring that conflict, and a great one can elevate the story to new heights. Think about the emotions and understand the depth of your characters and why it happens within your story. Those characters whose mere presence sends them shivers down the audience's spine, or the other characters' spine, such as the supporting characters. They also help the main character go forward within the story. A main character can move themselves within the story, regardless if it's the polar opposite, such as the villain or the supporting characters. It's some way works as a guide for the characters and vice versa for the villain as well. Let's have a look at more things about the supporting characters. They're the backbone of the screenplay, providing context, emotional depth and sometimes comic relief if it's done right, of course. If you're able to craft those visually and you make it make sense, it will help you so much more in the long run. The interactions between characters can shape the narrative in unexpected ways. Let's take a look closer to the motives and style of how your supporting characters can steal the show with unwavering support. Also keep in mind on side note that you don't want to make the supporting character the main characters. You have the supporting characters for a reason. Don't have them outshine the other one, and it's important not to do so. There's a lot of times when there are a TV show or something where it's more than one main character, and it's that part it could work if you let it work. However, that's the only reason why you're able to let that work is because the audience already knows that both characters are the main characters, and that's something where it's understandable if one character outshines the other. However, keep in mind on the focus on who the real main character is. Focus on them the most because they're the ones who can drive the story forward. You don't want to outshine the other one or have them do a complete 180 and become the supporting character, because that was something that is very important to understand. So if you know any TV shows or screenplays where you have more than one character, then that's something that you can work with or learn from, and then that way you can find ways to put your own creative spin on it. Back to supporting characters, every small character needs someone to look up to. When you bring the storytelling within the scene where the main character learns from or has mirrored the character by side, allowing crippled things to happen better shape your character to better help you move your main character and supporting character in their own respectful ways within the script to manage the plot of the story, or by you understanding the way you present and show the aspect of your scenes within your craft that will work collectively. Now let's focus on minor characters and extras. These are like basically the supporting characters for the supporting characters. It's best to call them minor characters, and also there's another group called extras where it's kind of like a cameo type thing. However, it's not. It's something small to help the other characters react to the behavior or ways your character is within your story. It depends on how those characters have small roles, and it's perfectly understandable for them to do so. So the minor characters and extras, even characters with limited screen time, can have pivotal roles that play well within your craft. Small brief interactions with other people within your story, and more brief interactions with other people within your character in mind for that part of the story can add layers to the story. Is a testament to the power of thoughtful character placement. There's a time and place for everything, and even small characters have to be there somewhere if you want to have minor characters within your story, and they have to have a reason to do so. Small characters or extras saying or doing something they'll have your characters learn or gain new information or skill, help them in the long run and become real. And one way to step up this next level is by having consistency with what they learn, having them use that new bit of knowledge or skill later in the plot. They'll bring you more clarity for them and or create more layers within that character's arc. Let's not overlook the extras, the background characters who populate the world. They might be nameless, but they breathe life in the setting. Imagine a supermarket or a crowded street run extras will feel empty. Even if the minor characters don't have names, they cover them as real people. It's as if you have a supporting character doing just a little bit of thing. It's like to have them in the story, and it's also important to realize to have them be realistic and have them be someone. Don't have to be important, however, they have to be necessary. That's to understand that sounds one and the same, however, it's not for this context within what I'm trying to say within the story. They have the brief areas of the actual people who can feel a story and scene a little bit more further. That's actually a task will be necessary for the minor characters versus the supporting characters. Think about which role your characters are needed for. Assemble cast versus singular focus. Attempt to explore the balance between a sexual cast and singular focus. Assemble cast certain heist films over a diverse array of characters, each contributing to the narrative over a diverse array of characters within their own quirks and skills, but juggling multiple story lines requires finesse yet manage story yet manage multiple storylines. On the flip side, singular focus allows for characters deep dive into a character's like creating an intimate character-driven experience that can be equally compelling. Consider your favorite film, body granted assemble adventures or intimate character studies. Both approaches have their merits, and the best script jealously shoots the best one deserves story, character development, the essence of unforgettable characters. Characters need to make room to evolve and grow to involve, and it's what separates the mundane from the extraordinary. It's what elevates them into a reliable entities. Elizabeth Bennet's Journey in Pride and Prejudice, which I've added and reviewed the 1995 and 2005 film, they stick with us because we witnessed their transformation. It's not just about external changes, it's about internal struggle and triumphs. Whether it's a descent into darkness or a journey of self-discovery, character development, and the hobby of the compelling narrative of going cliche stereotypes is crucial here. The more nuanced and articulated journey, the more audience will be able to connect and will remember and to learn from and be interested to watch or learn from again and again. Have them in the back of the minds and have a lot of respect for the way you care for these characters. Some minor characters, if you wonder why some minor characters leave a lasting impact while others fall into the background, today we're going to unravel the secrets behind minor characters that not only serve but become important to the story and crucial. The purpose of minor characters is understanding minor characters in story. They are not just placeholders or background noise. Minor characters serve a purpose, provide context, reveal facts of the protagonist, or even drive the plot forward. The key is to identify the unique contribution of each minor character and commit them to the narrative. Think about the impact and what crafted the minor character is within the storyline. They can provide insight of great tension or even impact humor into the storyline. Their presence through subtle quick key to unlocking new dimensions within your script. Crafting authentic backgrounds to make your minor characters truly essential. We need them to give them life beyond the intimate needs of the plot. Creating authentic backgrounds for these characters is crucial. Even the stories aren't explicitly told. Knowing their history, motives, and quirks can inform the actions and reactions of the narrative. Consider minor characters in your favorite stories. They may not add on arcs, but they're authenticity adds layers to the overall narrative. Take time to understand who these characters are beyond their role in the intimate scene. It's also important to have them. It's also important to have meaningful interactions with them and have them be powerful as well within their interactions. Minor characters often interact with the protagonist or other major characters. These interactions should be meaningful and contribute to the overall story, not just what they say or do, but it's about how these interactions impact the larger narrative. Think about the football within these interactions. Minor characters' words or actions can set off a chain of events influencing the trajectory of the story. Ensure the interaction that every single one has, no matter how small, serves a purpose. Now, no matter how small, it's also thinking about understand why I said earlier about the difference between the supporting character and the minor character. Have them be essential and serve a purpose. Yes, however, give them a purpose for that particular role within the story. It's not more to understand every single character is never going to interact or meet each other within the story, meaning some of the interactions are necessary, no need to mention them, with which the reasons could vary. Your character are scattered in different places and times within your story. Sometimes they could, if most storytellers do that. If yours aren't, then that's great to have them interact with each other. It depends how it is. I'm mostly speaking about the characters that are in different places and times within your story. For example, some characters not meeting or interacting with each other can shape your individual characters to stand on their own. It happens a lot, and on top of that, your characters can move plot forward to the end of the scene, page, ad, or script. Craft what's needed for your characters, so your audience being treated with in your world, your story, and your series, whatever it is you're trying to do, because it's very important to understand what's needed and necessary. Utilizing symbols and themes, advancement technique for making minor characters indispensable is to weave them into the broader themes and symbolisms of your story. Consider how the process can enhance or challenge themes maybe your minor character represents a contrasting perspective or embodies a crucial element of the story's symbolism. By aligning minor characters with your overreaching themes, you create a more cohesive and resilient narrative. The inclusion becomes international, and the inclusions become intentional and adds up layers to, and the inclusions become intentional and adds depth to the layers of your storytelling tapestry. The art of subtlety. Minor characters shouldn't steal the spotlight, however, the impact should also be felt. It's about striking the right balance between presence and restraint. The subtle nuance, their behavior, dialogue, and presence could create a subtext in which the viewer or reader's experience. Challenge yourself to convey information about your characters, even with the minor through actions and implications rather than exploit implications rather than flood exposition. A well-placed, detailed, subtle reaction can speak volumes. Crafting your characters that serve a purpose and enhance your story is an art form. There are unsung heroes that, when given attention and depth, can create a good story and make it into an unforgettable one. And there you have it. The intro dance characters within your screenplay, from protagonist to actors, each role contributes a symphony of storytelling. As you indulge in your favorite films, pay attention to the how and why of those characters are the way they are, and the attention to detail within characters and how they reflect on what makes them memorable and how the role shapes into the narrative. I feel like that's necessary for you to compare your characters, and not to make them better than them, but however, what makes them better for your story within your way, telling the story within your world. If you focus on world building, for example, that's mean shape your characters and think about how and why the characters are within the story, and also very crucial and important to understand who within your story is, who are these characters, who are they really, who are they to each other, to themselves, to the world, and they have a journey within those stories as well. Mostly talked about the protagonists, antagonists, and supporting characters. Those are the ones that have journey within the story, so also don't forget to understand the reasoning on who and the fact that they need to have a journey, and it's important to not make them stale and have them become someone new, transform themselves into someone important within themselves and for other important characters within your story, within your screenplay. Think about what qualities draw you to a character and how they impact your connection with the story on your world or your storytelling. What are the thoughts, what are the ways for how do they think individually, how can you make them realistic in the best of your abilities, in the best way you can. Think about the journey and inspiration within the dynamics, and think about the way you think about how passionate you are within your writing, how excited you'll be to have it come to life. And when you watch this, you'll be thankful for putting your effort in and think about the insights into the world of storytelling. Explore the way you craft your story and think about the creative side and stay inspired and keep the scripts alive. That's something very important to recognize and realize that will help you go a long way with how you evolve in your story. There's a lot of stuff that you have to do when it comes to creating and crafting the characters you want to create to make the pages come to life. And one thing is that when you see a lot of people create something that's already been told, it's important to be original. When you're original, you actually have find ways to become the best you can do what you have. You may not have it all figured out in script right away. It's important to write down the stuff that you actually need to write down. That way, the stuff that you can think about later will be the best thing for you to focus on later, rather than have it all be happening all at once, because it's something that is important for you to be organized and careful with how you perceive all these things of your creative writing. You have an idea and sense of what you want in your story, and you imagine it written down and finish, and imagine yourself watching something, right? Something that you're interested in seeing and visualizing, and think about how you present your project and having it there. It's there, but you don't know the deep details yet. That's what you're trying to figure out yet. So maybe there are sometimes when it's important to work backwards, where you think about the ending rather than begin. Maybe that could help set something there. Maybe that could work this way for you. However, that's not all for everyone. Some people prefer to work begin to end. However, if you feel like you needed to work in that way, where you prefer to work point where you would think about ending first, maybe, and then work your way backwards, that will help you only if it's something you're able to do. So maybe you're able to do that, and then that way you can figure out a way to create a great beginning rather than a great ending. Maybe some people would have the ending figured out, and then you would have a struggle with the way you have to begin with your story, and think about how you set your characters within the places within the beginning of the story. And that's maybe, however, one thing that's when it comes to the timeline events for your characters, you have a sense of where they will end up in the story. You'll think about the ending, you'll entice them together, or have the certain characters separate from each other and never cross paths again, or have them reunited, or whatever it is you need to do for those characters. It's important for you to understand that when you do this, it's something that you'll be proud to do so, because it's something that is your creation, your characters, your writing, your characters, supporting your other characters, because those characters are variations of you. They are your characters for a reason, and you treat them like so. It's when you do this with an open mind, you understand that that's the characters you are destined to create, and that's something that you need to understand that that's the way and path you and your characters, and that's something that your audience will see, that they'll see the tenant within the writing, within the story, based on the way the characters are in the paths they are in currently, and the paths, the directions they are going to be in later on in the story. Sometimes, when you think about characters, you think about one character at a time, for example. So when you think about one character at a time, you think about the role. So when you think about the role, you focus on the character's lives first. You have to act as if they've been that character forever. Not forever, but you have to make it seem like that character has existed since they were born, and think about where they are at that point within that timeline of their life. So then you do that for each and every single one of your characters, and depending how many characters you have, there's a long road to get there. So once you have those characters' lives connect with, in other words, interact with each other, they will all cross paths with each other, and that's the timeline of the story. That's how, and the story is the way it is because of the roles the characters play, and that's when you're able to get down and understand and create and write down the way they are, including conflict and challenges that they have, and stuff that they're able to have, and also placing them in the first act, second act, and climax, and everything else in between. Think about the way they are, and also making them more than two-dimensional, more than three-dimensional, make them so interesting and compelling. You want the audience who watches wherever whenever you write, you want them to root for your character, you want them to stand out, and that's very important for you to understand, is that when you have your audience root for your characters and you have your audience care for your characters, and what's more of that, more of the story, then I feel like that's something where you would feel that the positive response will help you understand they want more of it later on the line, or if that's the ending for the character, then you can understand that that's something that your mission is complete. When you write these characters, it's always a mission, so don't overdo it so much. You only need to stretch certain characters out. Even the best characters have don't think about it as screen time. Think about it as the time that they are in within the story. Think about that character has to be there for that certain amount of time in the story for them to be who they are, and that's all they ever need, and something the audience will hopefully understand and think about the way and the reasonings you did that for your character, that will you understand that more later down the line. So you're creating your next story with other characters. They may not even be related to these characters, and those characters have their own character roles. They have a main character or main characters that have supporting roles, and those supporting characters have supporting characters of their own. Every story has to stand on its own, and it's something that works really well. So hopefully by listening to this, you understand that that's something that you'll need to do in the way you present these characters, with them being curious with their path within the story will help them along the lines and help them see their path. But you writing the story, you're guiding them to the journey, and the journey that they are meant to have, regardless how long they're in the story, and regardless what the conflict is or the challenges or anything that they have to do within the story. That's something that it's very important for you to understand, that they have a personality within that, and so that's something that the audience will see through that, and they will be proud of your work, and that's something that will go a long way. Think about that characteristics, and think about how you're able to have these characters into place, into what do you need to for the story. By the timeline of the events in their lives, you have to make them consistent as well, because if they're not, then they're not characters. If they are not consistent with what they do, they have their reasons for doing what they do, and they have their own missions. These characters you have a serve purpose, and when they do it because they are consistent and they have the reasons to do so. And if they fall off, then that's something you have to understand why they would fall off, and there are points where you may not even realize they are not consistent, and you have a lot of storylines you want to tell. You have a lot of ways to express these characters individually and collectively, to the point where you may feel like for example, if you're creating so many characters in the story, or to end up the purpose for one of the characters could get lost and you may not realize it. So what's very important is to lay down a mission for the character's mission for the story, in that way when you have the mission and consistency in mind, you'll think about them in a way where you can set a path where you don't have to worry about them being inconsistent. So hopefully that will help you understand your character's journey, and their path will be set in the right place without you have to worry about them falling off the personality of because of something your audience will take notice, and that's something that you want in your pages that you may not be able to get back. You don't have to be perfect, of course. Not every writer is, so that's something to think about. It's never a competition or anything like that. It's always you versus you, and that's something that you should, that's something that's, it's always you versus you. And when you focus on that, that will help you and take your creative mind forward in ways you never could imagine possible. And that will be consistent too. Another point is to think about the characterization of who these characters are to you, who they want to become, who are they, and what do they see in themselves, and how do these characters see each other, and how do you want to express or show the individual environments within themselves. So if they have their own room, their own office, or something like that, within their own property, or they're neat, or they're organized, clumsy, or they have a lot of things within that environment, and really show their true character and also express themselves really well in that way. That's also an important thing, is to think about how would the audience see themselves when these characters. Are they reliable? Are they relatable? Are they going to be remembered in the long run? There are a lot of characters out there in movies and TV where people talk about to this day, not because they're popular, but because they are the ones that are actually show a good character within their characterization. They actually express themselves in such a unique way that's clever, because they feel like you can remember them. They feel like they have a purpose within that story, and the character they are within themselves. It makes sense with the story that you are presenting. So when you present your story in that way with a bunch of other characters in your story, that with the timelines of the events of your character, when they all come together collectively in a brilliant story, and it can have your audience understand these characters and sympathize with them. Each character has their own wants and needs, and some characters can be all talk, and when they actually show what they do, which is just sometimes the opposite of what they say, that will show that character's true character, and that will become the core value of that. Something that they will hold value within themselves of what they do. It's always about the action the character does within themselves in end, whatever it's for themselves to help other characters save the day or anything along the lines of that, or to get to the reasonings to make the point come across in a way where it makes sense that, well, anything goes there when it comes to showing your characterization in a realistic way. Sometimes the character's actions speak so much louder than the words they speak, and even if they're silent, they can give nods or gestures to other characters to let them know that they're the ones in charge or the ones who's running the show, or even whose story is it in that moment, as I mean, well, scene that will help them become more in the forefront and think about how the audience will see them.